Good morning, everyone. Excellent, thank you very much. Thank you very much for coming to this session. And we've got Rob, Pat, Claire, and Dom representing one of the larger software development companies and probably companies within real estate. We've got a customer, and we've also got Dom from Pi Labs basically representing the innovation that's coming in with all of the startups within the industry. Now, I'm going to be pacing around here because I can't really stand in one place because my knees are hurting. I want to just get a sense for the room that we've got here because it's a lot of people. How many of you work within a PropTech company? Okay, that's a fair size. So I'll just assume that the rest of them, everyone else is working in a traditional property company. How many of you are going through a digital transformation at the moment within your firms? And it's fine to be honest. Excellent, okay. So I'm asking those questions just to try and gauge, the amount of moderation to do, and in terms of just pitching some of the questions just for the audience itself. Now, I get bored listening to my own voice, so let's just kick off. So we're talking about open collaboration and open data. And I want to put that to the panel initially, just to get a sense for what does that actually mean for each one of you. So please, when you're introduced, please introduce yourself, give a little bit about the firm that you're working in, what you're actually doing, and your view on what open data and open collaboration means for you. Dom, do you mind if I start off with you?
Sure. So good morning. My name is Dominic. I'm the co-founder and managing partner at Pi Labs. So Pi Labs is a venture capital firm where we invest in early stage technology companies with a particular...
Is that working?
Is it working? Can you hear me now? Yeah. So I'll just repeat that. So we're a venture capital firm that invests in early stage technology companies with a particular focus on the real estate sector. And that's a pretty wide remit for us, everything from start of cycle, planning, development, environment, sustainability, through to development, construction, handover, services within that, as well as a fintech element in terms of sort of mortgages, lending, and insurance. So we see a lot of companies at a very early stage which are tackling multiple issues within that cycle. And the challenge for big real estate customers on the one hand, which tend to be buyers and sometimes investors in our portfolio companies, and the companies in which we're backing, is to what extent are you selling, to what extent are you collaborating, and at what point in the cycle, how vertically integrated is all that going to be? So I think, quite often companies start out solving a particular problem, and that's actually something that we openly advise them on. But bigger companies, REITs, large real estate landlords, et cetera, are looking for more end-to-end solutions. And so how does that collaboration play out? And then how do you use the data that's as a secondary piece, which is coming out from those interactions?
Cool, thank you. Claire?
Hi, I work for Aberdeen Standard Investments, and I'm responsible for our operating model, and I'm sat here today because that includes the selection of property technology. I think when we're thinking about open collaboration, we're thinking much more about how we can make sure that our clients ultimately end up with the information that they want, and that the golden source of data that we have is protected. We obviously want to share to make things more efficient and drive shareholder value for our own company, but that means that we have to protect certain amounts of our data. There is data that we don't want to share. It is of commercial value to us, but at the end of the day, there is a lot of information that's available out there today that anyone can access, and trying to make sure that we can get hold of that in a more efficient way is what is of real value to us, which can drive our efficiency. And I think if we can work with our competitors to try and bring some of that together, actually as an industry, we will be better off.
Excellent, thank you. Over to you, Rob.
Bob Courteau, I'm the CEO of Altus Group. With Argus, we have over 6,500 software customers, and we serve over 50,000 customers around the world on our services platform. Open collaboration for me as a supplier to the industry is to modernize our products, to make data available to you to run your business, but then we have a secondary responsibility as one of the largest providers of software in the industry to create collaboration across our industry, not only in context of the solutions that we offer, but in partnerships, in imagining how people want to collaborate to create indexes, to perform benchmarking and the like. So open collaboration is a state in time.
Okay, we'll come back to that one. And Pat?
Good morning. Is this working?
Is the mic on?
There we go. Good morning. My name is Pat Ghilani. I'm the CEO of MRI Software. We are a global real estate software provider, property management, investment, accounting solutions, commercial, residential, corporate occupier space. We have about 9,000 clients on every major continent around the globe. Here in the UK, you would know us primarily as our MRI property management brands, Cube Property Management, and the Horizon platform. So pleased to be here today. As it relates to collaboration, this is very near and dear to our hearts. In fact, it is the premier paradigm with which we develop, partner, and invest in software companies. The concept of multiple software solutions working together to give you your experience is exactly what we all wanted in 2019. We actually wanted it in 1995. It just wasn't as available as it is today. So a large-scale enterprise software, the pendulum has swung back and forth. On one hand, we went to single stack solutions, everything in one box, do it the way the software does it. Here in 2019 and beyond, you want to do it your way, and you want to do it with whatever solutions you pick. And to do that, the collaboration of data, the collaboration of systems and technology and connectivity and security, that is fundamental to the concept of platform as a service. So that's how we're focusing on collaboration.
Thank you very much. So while we're going through this discussion, I obviously won't pick up on everything. What I'm relying upon, obviously, from everyone here, if you pick up on anything, if you've got any questions, please do feed them through, and we'll try and give as much time as possible at the end for any questions. Claire, can I start with you? So within the industry, as I'm sure you know, there's huge amounts of data that gets generated. And one of the things that I think would be really useful for you to give your view on is how do you see being able to take all that data to actually provide competitive advantage? So it would be interesting just to get your view from you as a customer of different products, but then also you talked about being able to collaborate with your peers as well. It would be great just to get some insight on what that looks like for you.
There is a phenomenal volume of data that we bring in, and we, as a house, outsource quite a lot of the services we have, such as facilities management, for example, and trying to bring that in and manage it, data curation, buzzword at the moment, trying to make sure that that data is available to us and that we can access it promptly, quickly, with security is of real importance. We need today quite a different skill set, I think, from the skill set we had 20 years ago within investments in real estate. We employ lots of people who have got data science backgrounds, or lots might be stretching it, but some, who are able to manipulate vast volumes of data, either through systems of Argus and MRI, for example, or through traditional forms like Excel. They need to be able to extrapolate that data and inform the people who are making investment decisions. We need to be able to do that within our own business ourselves, but there is data sets available in the marketplace which we can collaborate with our competitors to try and help build up knowledge banks of what's going on in the marketplace. And I think We haven't really started to do that yet with our competitors, but I think that it is something that we can do to build efficiency within the real estate business, but whilst preserving our competitive advantage. I don't think you're ever going to get people to share the commercial aspects of contracts that they put in place behind the scenes.
Okay. And Dom, same question to you, I guess. What are you seeing coming in to the industry? What are the struggles that some of the newer firms are kind of trying to are experiencing? And where do they see the opportunities to kind of almost set themselves apart from everyone else?
So, I mean, I think that's quite a wide question.
It is a very wide question.
But I think when we talk about data in real estate, I think there's a number of kind of other key issues to touch upon. One is, and I think we've been on a panel before where we've spoken about this, is actually the cleanliness of the data that you actually have. So there's a lot of talk about real estate companies and real estate investors, asset owners actually having tremendous amounts of data, which on the one hand is true, but how that data has been stored historically, how that data can be used going forwards on a, dare I say, a predictive basis, is actually hugely difficult because of, let's say, the cleanliness of that and how repeatable that process is going to be. I think that also touches on, a larger question facing the industry, which is what kind of real estate company or what kind of real estate business do you actually want to be? Mm-hmm. And a lot of real estate was a bricks and mortar asset investing business. I think the data piece is somewhat tied to becoming more of a service related business. And in doing that, there is a wider kind of challenge in real estate companies, big real estate companies, sort of moving their dial away from just simply, IRRs, investment and everything else on an asset basis to what the long-term sort of value of that underlying data and what it represents actually is.
And can I put it to you, Pat? So, what is your view? So, obviously, hearing Claire and Dom talking about what they're trying to do within each of their particular environments. Do you have any examples? Is there something that you could kind of share with the audience about how you guys are working on providing that open data and open collaboration?
Yeah, I think what you're going to see at a conference like this is, a number of early stage companies solving unique problems. The challenge of data is what people miss is what's the endpoint result? What are you trying to achieve? What does the CEO need? What does a portfolio manager need to run their business? Mm-hmm. Which in essence is an aggregation of multiple data points. And for us, with 4,000 or 5,000 users on the Argus platform, customers, tens of thousands of users, and hundreds of thousands of models that get produced annually, you have this idea that you can be the platform for the industry, but I resist that. We are one data point in a sea of data, and more the idea of having a data strategy has to be unique to a company. What are we trying to achieve? And then you put the massive commoditization to work. My data, MRI's data, a startup, traditional data providers, and virtually every software company is moving to a data platform universally. For me, the thing that I marvel at is this, what I call FOLO, fear of losing out, meaning that we did a survey, an innovation survey this year of the top 400 real estate companies around the world. 53% of them are investing in PropTech companies. Yet in those same companies, they're trying to sign contracts with me, with MRI and others where we can't use their data. And so it's a really interesting phenomenon that is going on. And folks have to sort that out because the leaders, as Claire just said, are going to put data scientists to work in a world where you have massive access to data.
Okay, and Pat? Is the mic on?
I think, here we go. Bob said it very well, and we have the same kind of thought process. Let's look at it in two ways. So first of all, let's think about, it was just a few years ago, we sat here and every conference you went to, you heard about big data. Right? It's big data, big data, big data. And again, that was really the first time that so many data sources were available and storage capacity was there and there was access to this data. And then what happened? We started creating dashboards with lots of analysis and pretty pictures, and everyone would ask software companies, I want to be able to drill down and I want to be able to do this. I want to be able to send that. You all remember that, right? And now what we hear is, don't show me all that crap. Just give me what I need, right? So big data became, show me the right data. And now not even show me the right data, it's just tell me exactly what I should respond to, right? So you're hearing software companies like ourselves talk about robotic process automation and artificial intelligence and so forth. So we as software companies are doing everything we can to help analyze that data. And so the good news is technology is evolving to do what we want. But, and this is where I align with Mr. Courteau, at the end of the day, we all must agree that data formats and data transportation between systems and users and so forth is not an IP right of an individual company, and it is something that if we all had it, we would be bigger, better, and more successful across the board. Every client we talk to says the same thing. We want this. We want to be able to see the value of the business right next door and what their leasing information is. Oh, but we don't want to share ours. Right? And by the way, I get it, right? Those are really tough questions when you're owners, operators, and that's a really tough question. But if you want it, you got to be able to give it. An age-old problem, isn't it?
Yep, that is definitely an age-old problem. Am I on? Yep. So just on that then, so we're obviously wanting to focus on what's the actual, the main outcome for our customers, being both occupiers, whether it be employees, as you said, you mentioned the CEOs as well. Can I ask then? So I guess from your perspective, Pat, and I'll start with you. So you talked about there shouldn't be any kind of IP, and I'm going off script here a little bit, so please forgive me. But there shouldn't be any IP, and we should be able to share data across platforms. Can I ask then, as a company that has an open ecosystem and has an open API, how are you finding that? How has that been kind of adopted within the industry? You've been doing this for a while now. Where do you see that going in terms of, I guess, the approach that you guys are taking?
Yeah, so, as it relates to, I think the software providers have very much aligned to the concept of, the death of the single stack, the death of, one solution does everything, right? So we talked a lot about cars and autonomous cars next door at the session over there this morning. And imagine how many of you drive a car where you think every part within that car was made by the same company. It doesn't even happen, right? Then you think about, okay, so the adoption of autonomous cars, again, playing off of what we heard this morning, autonomous cars would be everywhere if every car was autonomous. So it's actually twice as hard for the vendors of autonomous cars to make cars to deal with us as human beings driving it. So if everyone decided to use autonomous cars, it would be easier on the vendors, easier on the users, everybody across the board. Same thing with data. So I think software companies, you think about all the PropTech companies from startup all the way to 5-decade companies like ourselves, we are collaborating and believe in connectivity, APIs, and so forth. But again, I think that there's still that struggle of how do you differentiate in a world where everything is supposed to be connected and together, but you want to have value with your own assets. And we struggle with the same thing with software, right? We want to be a valuable asset and known to you and not just kind of behind the wall that nobody knows about us. At the same time, as long as we're part of that DNA, we should be happy. And so we struggle with the same things that I think companies do with their own data.
And Dom, can I put that similar question to you, thinking about in terms of the outcomes? What are the biggest challenges that you're kind of seeing? And actually, if we were in that state where there is no IP and we can share data across systems, what would that mean for some of the companies that you're working with?
Well, I think for both the companies themselves, so as in companies that we've invested in, the startup companies, the technology companies, and the users of that, so their customers, the users of that technology, it's potentially a big problem because a large number of these, we have 3 companies that use data to provide a competitive edge to their customers. And if in an environment where that is now sort of open and there's no sort of IP around that, then there's a competitive advantage that's lost, both for the technology company in question, and arguably for the end user as well. And we've had plenty of discussions with large kind of private equity real estate firms, for example, who are uncomfortable with the notion, who have they outperform alpha in their sector and everything else, are uncomfortable with any kind of disclosure of data or secret source, whatever you want to call it, that could diminish those returns on a competitive basis in a environment where fundraising is hard. So that said, I think I completely agree with Pat in the sense that we're going in that direction, right? This is the direction of travel. It's a question of how quickly and how efficiently we're going to get there. But real estate is in a wider sense of the word, kind of more entrenched on this and sort of needs to move away from it. But I think it is a very, very real challenge.
Okay. And Claire, I'm sure having gone through lots of integrations in your role, what would it have been like for you? So in that, again, that same world where everything is open, all data can kind of flow fairly freely. What would have meant for a company like yourself? One, in terms of just doing integration, but 2, thinking more again about the customer, thinking about the internal stakeholders you've got. What would have meant for you in doing your role within your company?
I think the value that we add is about being able to manipulate, extrapolate, and make decisions on data. And as I said earlier, there is a lot of data that I don't think we would ever share. That is commercial data around fees and the like. But I think, as people have said, that it is going in that direction. And I think that we would try to sell ourselves, or we do try to sell ourselves, as able to make decisions off the data that we have, as much as having proprietary data. And bringing companies together is actually about how we can bring those data sets together, and using software tools like Argus and MRI is what helps us do that. The software tools that we have need to be able to talk to each other, otherwise we get in situations where we've got massive data sets to transfer around, which has implications on golden sources of data and manual error and operational risk and the like. So the more that software packages can have open architecture, the easier it is in situations where you've got companies joining or trying to transfer data around. But I think, going back to the question, really it is what someone like Aberdeen Standard or our competitors will do with the data that is actually the USP, and not necessarily how much of it is secure or only open to us.
Yeah. Similar question to you?
Well, I always am amazed when I come to these conferences and hear about the enthusiasm for technology and real estate, like it's something exciting. You have to remember it's 2019. These technologies are available in every other industry in the world. And now what's happening is there's a demographic going on where through the institutionalization of real estate, this is a preferred asset class where all the drivers are coming onto data. Regulation, liquidity, insight, performance, and that's going to massively accelerate how these tools can be used. But for God's sake, it's 2019. Like, you really got to get on with it. And that's what we're seeing. We really are seeing now breakout companies that are using data and technology today to drive differentiation, to make their companies better, led by CEOs that value it, don't have their big decision in technology do I buy MRI Yardi? There's more to it than that. And I just had to do that for Patrick here. So I know it's only MRI, right? So thank you.
He keeps me on my toes.
But seriously,
Or someone completely different.
seriously, my key theme here is the technologies available from traditional data suppliers. It's available from innovators like we're seeing at conference. It's available from software companies, and it's available inside your business. And if you don't have a strategy to take advantage of it, you're already falling behind.
Cool. So I've got one final question before we move into Q&A. So again, people, if you haven't written down any questions, please do feel free. It's not often that we get so many great people on the stage to be able to ask them candid questions, and I promise that I will make sure that they give an answer.
Might give an answer.
Final question, I guess, is in the future, where do you see the most value add? Because as you said, it is 2019. Lots of other industries are sharing their data, and we've seen actually that explosion where new standards have come in, and they've been able to disintermediate and they've been able to build new products on top of what was there before. Where do you see the value add within real estate within 5 to 10 years, let's say, if everything was open and available? Start with you.
Yeah, so I'm on the advisory board of Sidewalk Labs in Toronto, which is doing some very interesting things in terms of using data to improve the way people work and live. I think that's pretty cool. I think the merging of data being freely available with technologies like social and auctioning is going to create some really interesting paradigms in terms of how consumers can participate in the institutional space. I think the ability to create benchmarking data and performance data is going to increase accountability back to investors. And so if you look at it across the board, what you're going to find is, for the first time in this industry, that technology will drive your competitive advantage, whether you're a developer, whether you're a contractor, whether you're an investor, or whether you're an asset manager. You need to actually apply technology, which is the vessel that releases data, to improve the way you do business and to be competitive.
Okay. Pat?
Sure. So I think fundamentally the biggest thing that would make a difference, and I hope that all of us on the stage and in this room are going to be leaders of that, and that is to adopt infrastructure and formats that allow the freedom of information to flow, right? So I think at the end of the day, right, we can talk about, hey, I did this transaction, all the information about that transaction, I don't want it to be public. Maybe I'm in a situation where it's a private transaction, I don't want the value and so forth to be out there. But can we at least agree to the format of the data? Can we at least agree that there's a platform where all data would go, all of you would deliver it in a similar way, you would access it in a similar way, and security would just simply be maintained individually? Essentially, as cheesy as this sounds, imagine Facebook for real estate, right? Where it was all the information in a centralized location where people could go in and out of it, but you could choose who saw that information. And I think if you look at data that way, if you look at software that way, the plug and play of enterprise software with the plug and play of enterprise data is utopia. And it will happen. It's just a matter of if we're going to be the generation of professionals that make it happen.
Cool. And Claire?
Yeah, I completely agree with this point. I think that if we could get together as an industry at whichever stage of the data chain you're in and sort out the nomenclature that we use, be it for addresses even at a very basic level, it would really help the management of the data within our systems, and it would help trying to drive the efficiency for everybody in whatever stage they're in this industry. I think this is a really valid point, and if we could get together to do that in the next couple of years, I think it would really help efficiency.
Okay. And Dom?
I think the future is going to, make a bold claim, which is that I think the way real estate is sort of looked at and actually valued is just going to be completely different. So I think at the moment, if you take the way assets are currently valued, there's normally a pretty close range depending on sort of lease length and how new the building is and how well it's maintained and things like that. But actually, if the power of this data, those that harness it will be able to really leverage value from the assets that they own, which in turn means that those assets are going to be more like underlying kind of companies, underlying businesses in their own kind of way. And so I think you're going to see a greater divergence really between the value that real estate owners who've really tackled this data point and how much value they're extracting from the assets that they own, from those that effectively just treat it as a shell with leases and cap rates and et cetera. I think that will be an outdated model. And I think to Bob's point as well, that's going to challenge, perhaps in a positive way, the whole notion of liquidity in real estate. And that will change what it looks like as an asset class as well.
Cool. Thank you very much. Can I ask for a round of applause for the stage audience that we've got here? Thank you. Yeah, sure.
Thank you very much. That was an excellent first panel. I'm going to be really interested now to see whether anyone replicates the orbit technique that you had there of chairing. And there's lots of chair swizzling as well, which is pleasing. So we've got time for just one question. I'm going to try, because I love a live question. Does anybody... Oh, yes, we do. That's amazing. Getting the microphone. It's the gentleman there in the yellow tie. Thank you very much.
Hello. Thank you for the great talk. It was very insightful. So it's kind of a two-part question. One, just to confirm that I correctly understand one of the points you were discussing. And then the second part is just to understand how you would implement it. So when you talk about a centralized database, so to say, of all the data, is this so you can allow switching and kind of the building of the stack much easier? So you can just do one API key exchange, and then the data gets automatically synced between the maybe 3-4 parties that this client wants to use.
Right, so let me clarify that in no way would it ever be a central database, right? So I was speaking virtually. So first and foremost, and I will tell you, there's been efforts, including in this part of the world. I think we called it Pisces here, and in the U.S. we have a group called Oscar, and these are data formats, right? It's standardization of data formats. So first and foremost, I think we not only need to continue those efforts, but actually use them. And you as clients need to come to me and make me do it. Right? Just say, hey, if you're going to give me a report, if you're going to give me a data transmission, if you're going to give me an API, make it in this format because everybody uses that format. And so ultimately what I'm talking about is, just like the World Wide Web is connected, all of those protocols that allow information to be shared virtually, that is something that we need to do with enterprise systems that serve real estate. And then fundamentally, as long as you have the data formats and the paradigm of open and connected in the platform, then virtually you have a global database, right? So, yeah.
Can I before you, do we have any MRI customers here?
Yeah, that's good. Let's take a poll.
No,
Jay.
Yep.
I think they're being shy. There's plenty here.
Yeah. the reason I'm asking is because obviously, as Pat has said, as customers, we use these solutions. We need to basically be going to them and saying, we would like this new standard. We would like to operate in this way. And the control is ours. And he's laid down the challenge.
Yeah, I think when you think about data, you have to think about it in two domains. What Patrick's talking about is structured data and the ability to work in networks where people can use technologies like APIs to move data around between organizations. The more exciting stuff for me is the unstructured data, to be able to get data from multiple sources into a concept of a data lake and then draw it down based on a persona, a workflow, a type of need. And more, there's some really cool companies, even here, that are really starting to tackle these types of opportunities. And that's where you're going to see growth in our industry, is the ability to take unstructured data and then turn it into things that improve the way you do business. That's for me, the fun part.
Thank you so much. We've got so many questions that have come in, and there's so many people here, but we're already 5 minutes over, but it's a really great problem to have, and I'm sure these guys will all be around afterwards. I know Darryl asked for, Darryl asked for a round of applause for the panelists, but I think really important for another round of applause that includes Darryl as an excellent orbiting moderator. Thank you.